Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's episode of my TerraVision reviews. Today we're going to be tackling an entire season or series of a show, however you want to look at it. From the year 2018, directed by Mike Flanagan. Originally was a Netflix release, but here we have The Haunting of Hill House. I got caught between calling it a season or a series because it technically is just a standalone series, but kind of had a spin-off or season 2, however you want to look at it, with The Haunting of Bly Manor. But the only thing really connecting those two is they're both directed by Mike Flanagan, both have similar formats and setup, and obviously being released on Netflix originally. I really like when Netflix actually do bother to put out physical media releases of their shows, but I think honestly having Mike Flanagan as director is the thing pushing that forward, so don't hold your breath on that happening more often. But it's nice we did get a physical release of Haunting of Hill House. As I said, Mike Flanagan attached directing this, and he did do stuff before Haunting of Hill House, but I think this is really the show or thing that he had his hands on that shot him into the mainstream and really proved to horror audiences that he knows what the fuck he's doing and you can really trust him behind the camera. As I said, from 2018, and I think a lot of people would still consider this to be one of the better horror-related TV shows of modern time. And it's really one that also just broke out of horror audiences, and everyone was checking out this series. I think being on Netflix helps with that, but it had a lot of popularity. Everyone was talking about this series back in the day, and I think this was maybe my second, probably even third time checking out this series, so it's definitely one that I liked, but it was still fun to go back and check out this one for today's review. So getting into the plot for The Haunting of Hill House without going into spoilers for those who haven't seen this series and want to check them out for themselves. And with it being a series, I'm going to have to sort of tiptoe around and just sort of give the brief dot points of this series. But in this show, you're sort of following two timelines, but it opens with the Crane family as a flashback. So 5 siblings and 2 parents who move into Hill House. The plan is for the parents to renovate it, sell off, and then eventually stay in their forever home. But not long into staying there, the kids start to notice that the house is not all that it seems to be, and even the parents are starting to pick up on some things that they notice to be odd. But a lot of the kids are calling Hill House haunted, and they're suspicious of some sinister things going on within the walls of this house. Eventually, tragedy does strike in this flashback, and the family are forced to leave without giving too much away. And now we're in modern times. The 5 siblings have grown up, they're all adults. And the ghosts and the things that have haunted them in the past with Hill House are starting to catch up with them, and not everything is as it seems, and we're travelling along with their stories now and their characters. So I'm just going to sort of leave it there. There is so much more going on in this series than what I'm explaining there for the plot, but again, I didn't want to get into it too much and give too much away because there are a lot of twists and turns and reveals and cool things going on in this series. So I'm going to leave it there. Let's get into my thoughts of The Haunting of Hill House from the year 2018. To go back over what I said in my intro, I think a lot of people would consider this to be one of the best horror-related series of the past decade. I remember when this one first came out on Netflix back in 2018, it had so much hype around it, people talking about it, and not just people within the horror community either. This is definitely a show that broke into the mainstream. I think it being a Netflix release definitely was a factor into that, just being more accessible to people and audiences and having more eyes on it. But, people talking about how scary it was, how addicting it was, and people that binged it, they were already begging for a season 2. This had so much hype and praise around it back in 2018. And like I said in my intro, I want to say this was my 3rd time watching the series, but maybe 2. So I know for a fact that I've at least seen it twice. But going in to rewatch it for this TerraVision review, I was going, okay, I know it's a show that I like. It's not going to be a chore to get through. It will be pretty easy because I know it's a show that I enjoy. But I was prepared to be okay, I'm going to watch 2 episodes, maybe throw in a movie to break it up, another 2, chuck on another movie or something like that, and I'll spread it out over a time of a week or 2, something like that. I watched the first 2 episodes of this series again, and I was immediately hooked. I'm fuck it, I'm just going to binge it. I ended up doing it in 2 days, maybe 3, something like that. It was just such a chore and breeze to get through. For those who haven't seen this series and they're wondering how much of a commitment this is to get into, I have no stats here. This is just all off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure this is a series of 8 to 10 episodes, and each episode has a runtime of like 45 minutes to an hour, so I guess it really depends on how much time you have on your hands and how much you want to commit to it, but I definitely think this is one of those shows that is worth committing to, because it's not just your average haunted house, like Conjuring-like movie, but put into a TV show format. There is so much more to this show than what you would expect. Like, character and story definitely do come first in this one, but the scares are so impactful and so well done and so well executed. Definitely a show that is worth your time if that is something that you're looking to get into, and yeah, we'll break it down as I get into my thoughts of this series. So like I'd gotten into when I was doing the plot description of this show, within the series you're following two different timelines, and throughout the episodes you do jump between the timelines quite frequently, but if you're worried about that feeling jarring or you feel like you're going to get confused with it or anything like that, this show is just so well planned out and written, and the script is like pinpoint perfect and the story and everything. So if you're worried about it feeling jarring jumping between the two timelines, don't worry about it whatsoever, because it is just so smooth and well executed. But you got the first timeline, which is sort of the flashback timeline when the Cranes were actually living in Hill House and most of them were kids, and then you've got the second timeline, which is modern day or present time, where they're adults and they're dealing with the repercussions of growing up in Hill House and the effect that it's taken on them. The timeline is kind of split, maybe 40-35% of flashback, like when they were kids and in Hill House, and then the rest is present day when they're adults, which I actually prefer the present day storyline. I know it sounds like it would be a little less exciting because all the haunting was happening in Hill House, but just the drama and how the characters have dealt with it growing up and things like that, that's the storyline that I do prefer watching. But both of the timelines are like really entertaining, and as I said, really well interconnected. Like the timeline jumping and the story that it's telling is just so smooth and interconnected, and there's no confusion whatsoever. The episodes themselves, there is no filler episode. There's no episode that is in there for the sake of just, filling in the runtime or just being there for the sake of being there. Every episode in this series feels so important to characters and their development, and connecting their stories from being kids in Hill House and how it's affected them now as adults. The first handful of episodes are all focused on the individual kids themselves. So you've got Stephen, who was the oldest of the family, and he always sort of felt the house wasn't haunted, and now he's an author, and he's got his own things going on, and he sort of looks back at Hill House as just the family being in hysterics. You got Shirley, who was the second oldest, and she's just always seen herself as needing to be the one who holds the family together. You've got Theo, who she's dealing with her own things, which I don't want to go into here because she's got some deeper things going on that it's a rabbit hole to go into. You've got Luke, who has fallen into drugs and bad habits because of the effects of living in Hill House. And then you've got Luke's twin sister Nellie, who was always just her character's sort of hard to explain, and she definitely has some things going on early, so I don't want to get into her character and where things go. But like the first few episodes are all focused on with the kids, and no character in this show is boring. No episode in this show is boring. It is just so well executed. As I said, with having each episode focused on one of the siblings, all of them get attention. So if you have a favorite character, none of them are going to feel underutilized within this show. They all get their moments to shine. And on top of that, all great acting and all great performances, not just from their child actors, but their actors also grown up. And everything is just so well interconnected on that level. So getting into a few of my favourite episodes of this show, or episodes I'd consider to be highlights of the series. Again, it's a show with no bad episodes, so it's sort of hard to pick some of my favourites, but going into a few without any spoilers, I do like the first handful of episodes, again, because the first 5 are focused on the 5 children within the family, and all of them, it's just really cool to see like where they are now and comparing it to what had happened to them and their experiences in Hill House and how it's changed them from being kids to adults. Like I said, I don't think I honestly have a favourite character of the 5 siblings. Watching it this time around for this review, I'd probably say my least favourite, if I have to pick one of the 5, is probably Nellie. Only because, nothing to do with her character or anything, but just because I am familiar with the show and I know what happens to her character, which is such a major plot point for the series. It was just a little less impactful this time around, but still those first 5 episodes are really impactful to me. But if I have to say my favourite 2, One of them is the episode Two Storms, which I think is episode 6 or 7. Meme not intended there at all. And then the final episode. I guess I'll start with the episode Two Storms, because a lot of people would probably choose the finale as their favourite episode. So I'll start with Two Storms, and I'll say why I think it is probably the most consistently good episode in the series. So in this episode, it's just after a family tragedy. Again, no spoilers, but someone has passed away and they're attending a funeral, and it's just our main characters here. It's not a funeral, sorry, it's like their wake or something. They've all been banded together because the family's been separated as they've gone into adulthood. This is their first time all together in ages, and they're dealing with this death and dealing with the grief and how this could have happened and things like that. And it's all one location in this funeral home. The only time you ever leave this funeral home is during these small, quick flashbacks to when they were kids. But it's just our main characters. It's all drama, all development. The storytelling, the atmosphere is incredible because it's during this storm. The episode is quite quiet, other than when they get into big family arguments, which happen on and off throughout the episode. It's just so much drama and tension, and the atmosphere is so creepy as well. And then the final shot of this episode is absolutely haunting, and it honestly gives me goosebumps just thinking back on that final shot of the episode and what it represents and what it means. I think Two Storms, again, is the name of the episode. I think that is honestly the most consistent episode of the show. It's just, if you love storytelling, it's a perfect episode. It is so fucking good. But then again, probably going with what most people would consider to be the best episode of the show, which is the finale, where, again, it's hard to talk about these without going into spoilers, especially considering each episode is only 45 to an hour, but just the culmination of what the family has gone through, what this final episode represents. And as I said, this is a series that will prioritize story and characters and emotion first over the scares. With that being said, this show is genuinely scary as fuck, and it executes scares very well, and we'll get into that. But just, as I said, this finale and what it represents and what every episode has been building up to this point, it hits on an emotional level like no other. As I said, I want to say this is my third time watching this series, and again, the ending still made me emotional. I was swelling up, I was getting goosebumps, teary-eyed, just because it is so well executed, and throughout the whole series has been prioritizing the story and the characters, and it just makes the ending so much more impactful, and I can definitely see why it's a fan favorite episode and definitely one of the best of the series. I say it's a little less inconsistent than Two Storms. There are just some lower points in that episode, but the highlights are definitely high praise, so two of my favorite episodes of the show there. So to wrap up this review, because honestly this is a show you can break down on so many levels, whether you're going into the characters or the story or the development or how he got from A to B and everything like that. This is a show you could talk about forever, but I honestly think this is some of the best, not just horror related television, just some of the best television of the past decade. This is a series that I'd consider to be almost perfect, and there are no bad episodes, like I was saying, and I really like, for a horror series, it just prioritizes character and story and development first, because that ending is just so impactful. But the scares are there as well. Like I was saying, everyone was talking about how shit scary this show was. Everyone still to this day talks about the hidden ghosts, because they came out and said pretty much in every shot of this show there is a hidden ghost if you're paying attention. And there's a lot of subtle scares as well as jump scares, but none of them are cheap or unworthy or anything like that. This is how you do haunted, paranormal scares and everything like that. I've been one to say on this channel and wherever you've heard me talk about horror, paranormal, demonic, haunted house movies aren't usually my favorite, just because I find them to be very formulaic and the same thing over and over. But this is how you do a story like this, dealing with those elements and how you execute those scares. And I really like, again, just going back to that final episode, it doesn't feel like something you would get from The Conjuring 4, for example. That just felt like some Hollywood bullshit, a big showdown going up against some big spirit. This is the Warrens in their final duel against something bigger than them. I don't appreciate that. I just felt like that movie was doing too much. In this show, it's nothing like that. It feels like everything that has been built up has been warranted by something a little bit more subtle and a little bit more emotional, and it doesn't feel as grand, but it just hits on a whole nother level and doesn't feel like just some corporate Hollywood production slog for the sake of it. It just feels really cool. I'm going to ramble about this one longer than I need to if I keep going. So, Haunting of Hill House, I genuinely think it's an outstanding show. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Definitely recommend it if you haven't checked it out. If you've seen Hill House, let me know your thoughts on it, guys. Thank you for watching this review. Sorry if my thoughts were a little bit scattered. It is harder to prepare to do these TV shows rather than a horror movie review, just because there's more elements that you got to remember, and a longer timeline of things to try and compress into one review. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts of it in the comments below, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.